Hello everyone, I am Romel ENERIDO from Bachelor of Arts in English Language and welcome to my YouTube channel. And for today's video, I am going to discuss the study and theories in the different fields of linguistics. There are 5 topics that I'm going to discuss, namely the cognitive theory, discourse theory, monitor theory, social interaction, and the variable competence. In this video, I will also include the strengths and weaknesses and their relationship to the language of learning. And first, let's discuss about cognitive theory. The main assumption of cognitive theory is that thoughts are the primary determinants of emotions and behavior. The cognitive approach to learning believes that internal mental processes can be scientifically studied, and this explains why the brain is the most incredible network of information processing in the interpretation in the body as we learn things. One of its strengths is analyze verbal data collected in relation to cognitively challenging tasks. When formulating their thoughts, speakers draw in systematic ways of their general repertoire of language to express their current concepts. Their choices in relation to a cognitively demanding situation or scenario can reveal crucial aspects of their underlying conceptualizations, shedding light on how people solve complex problem-solving tasks as well as how they describe complex problems or situations. The main disadvantage of this theory is that it refers to the cognitive processes that we cannot directly observe. It relies heavily on inference. Critics of Luptus and Palmer's leading questions experiments pointed to the validity of the reconstructive memory hypothesis, as we can assure that memory has changed as the researchers couldn't observe memories but only the answers given, which may have been the result of demand characteristics or even poor judgment of speed. Therefore, the cognitive approach may lack being scientific on the basis that it is subjective in what is taken from findings. Assuming that findings are the result of invisible processes is heavily subjective and could lead to self-fulfilling prophecy and internal validity being raised as issues. When in terms of its relationship to the language of learning, the cognitive theory of language acquisition is based on the aspect that a child develops language as he develops intellect. The inherent theory focuses on the innate aspects of the brain that allows children to formulate verbal processes. A positive reaction would cause the child to repeat the action to see whether the result would remain positive, and from what that judgment, he can make alterations to his statements. The use of the hypothesis allows children acquiring language to make connections from prior information to discover new possible uses of language. This concept is universal to all the theories of language. Discourse theory proposes that in our daily activities, the way we speak and write is shaped by the structures and power of our society. And that is because our society is defined by struggle and conflict, and our discourses reflect and create conflicts. Discourse theory is concerned with human expressions, often in the form of language. In discourse theory, such hierarchies lead to domination resistance. For example, when different people try to assert who should speak with authority on issues of health policy. The strength of this theory is that it can be used to study different situations and subjects. It allows public relations researchers to uncover deeply held attitudes and perceptions that are important in an organization's image and communication practices that might not be uncovered by any other methods. In terms in the weaknesses, discourse analysis can take large amounts of time and effort. This technique focuses solely on language. Although language may be an important component of public relations practice, it rarely tells the whole story. Consequently, discourse analysis should be supplemented by other qualitative techniques such as observation or focus group interviewing. In relation to the language of learning, discourse plays a vital role in the language development process. In the context of Stephen Krashen's theory, discourse encourages acquisition of language, which is a product of subconscious processes, rather than the learning, which is what takes place under explicit instruction. The next theory that we are going to discuss is about the monitor theory. The monitor theory explains the relationship between acquisition and language learning. The monitoring function is practical result of the learned grammar, and the theory was based on the concept of Chomsky. The theory was successfully used as a tool for interpretation of the relationship between acquisition and language learning. It developed 4 hypotheses that provide frameworks such as the natural order hypothesis, the affective filter hypothesis, the input hypothesis, and the acquisition versus language learning. The weaknesses of this theory is its use with a set of conditions that must be met. There are the acquirer must know the rule, the acquirer must be focused on correctness, and must have the time to use the monitor. Social interaction. It's a language development explanation that emphasizes the need of social interaction between a developing child and a linguistically skilled adults. It is also an all-encompassing term designed to bring together what is known about social interaction. Thus, it harmonizes theories from various schools of thought to create a more in-depth understanding of how social organization and human emotion are intimately linked. Their strength is that underscores the relationship between the meaning of symbols and a person's behavior. In a way, certain behaviors may be predicted. And it gives insight into small-scale human interactions and recognizes that perceptions of reality are variable and changing. Considers that social environment in which learning takes place, sees humans as active, creative participants who construct their social world, not as passive, conforming objects of socialization, according to Blomer, 1969. The weaknesses of this theory is that symbols may be interpreted incorrectly among different groups of people. It can be difficult to quantify things in symbolic interactionism because this theory deals with interpretation and is thus subjective by nature. Overestimates the power of individuals to create their own realities, ignoring the extent to which humans inhabit a world not of their own making. This is according to Goffman, 1974. Neglects the emotional dimension of human conduct, focusing strictly on logical behavior, and this is also according to Manis and Meltzer, 1978. The relationship of this theory to the language acquisition is that language is so fundamental to the rituals and events of everyday life that its role is taken for granted. Language and social interaction deals with how we use language to negotiate relationships, actions, and events in our daily lives. Children naturally acquire a language in social context where they can interact with their caregivers. Indeed, research shows that social interactions facilitates a lexical and phonological development at the early stages of child language acquisition. The last topic that we are going to discuss in this video is about the variable competence. So what is the variable competence? The variable competence of second language acquisition proposes that the ability to use language varies systematically within functional domains and linguistic contexts, and that such variability is inherent to the interlanguage as well. Its strength is that variable competence models take a social-linguistic approach to second language acquisitions. It explains that the capability underlies performance, and that is, the capability consists of heterogeneous knowledge which varies by speech style, which in turn is related to the task being undertaken by the learner, the interlocutor, and the topic. In other words, there is no homogeneous competence underlying performance but a variable competence or capacity which underlies specific instances of language performance. However, the weaknesses of this theory is that it only focuses with the second language acquisition. The root of the problem of the variable competence model is that there are serious conceptual objections to it. Chomsky made a distinction between the performance and the competence because it fits his theory of language and the first language acquisition. Competence is what we know about language. It is, in Chomsky's theory, a well-defined phenomenon which is explained by appeal to an innate human capacity which the vast majority of human beings are born with. The job of linguists is to describe the rules that make up this linguistic competence and then test empirically the theory that all languages obey these rules. In order to test the rules, Chomsky says that we cannot just use performance data, since much of it cannot be counted as evidence for or against the theory. However, the relationship of this theory to the language acquisition, as I have mentioned earlier, the relationship of the variable competence to the language learning is the ability to use language varies systematically within functional domains and linguistic contexts, and that such variability is inherent in interlanguage as well. It helps linguistics and scholars to ponder more the second language acquisition.